Good evening, Razorback fans. I want to welcome you to this week's edition of the Weekly Women's Sports Report, presented to you by Fordham Distillery and powered by Hotworks, as well as Bet Online, which remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from esports to basketball to college basketball. You'll find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, game trends at Bet Online. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events, so head on over to the betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use your promo code BLEAV to receive your rewards. Bet Online, where the game starts. And we are inside of the Amigo Provision Studio, and where we go and bring in Justin McLeod of Extra Innings Softball. Been looking forward to chopping up with you this season because I know you've been busy your first 2 weeks. I mean, I don't understand how you get to see all the games you do, but just before we dive into the Arkansas stuff, just talk about how crazy the first 2 weekends of your softball season's been.
Well, I drove down to Florida on, I guess it was February 7th, whatever the Wednesday was that week, and I've been here ever since. We did I did 3 tournaments in opening weekend. I did a day in Tampa, did a day in Orlando, got back to Clearwater about 3 a.m. that night, did Clearwater for 2 days, stayed over, and then I did 4 days of the Clearwater tournament this past weekend. So there's been a lot of softball in a short span.
So how many games do you think on a given year, like not cover, but watch? Like how many games do you think that you're at on a given season?
I mean, this year, for instance, I'm on the road 12 out of the 13 weekends. And I'll do midweeks. So we're probably talking by the end of the year, especially with early tournaments like this where I see 10, 12 a weekend. I mean, we're probably getting close to 75, 100. Oof. Not counting postseason.
Yeah. And a lot of that does get, factored into these invitationals and these, especially the Clearwater where 5 to 6 teams are playing in one day, or Razorback Invitational coming up. You got 3 teams playing, but they're playing double headers. And that's where the difference between baseball and softball comes in, is you could play a 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock doubleheader like it's nobody's business.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, especially in softball. I mean, because you've got, especially now with you're moving more towards a pitching staff versus one pitcher, you can go out there and, I mean, literally, when I was in Orlando on opening week, we did 4 games that day. The last game had a 1-hour rain delay, didn't start till about 8:30, and we went 3 hours and 41 minutes. And both teams had already played that day.
Jeez. That's insane. So go ahead.
No. You're right. Insane's a great word.
But we'll recap, the Tax Act Clearwater Invitational, where Arkansas finally accepted their invitation. And, Coach Deifel recorded her all-time wins there, and big congratulations to her, as we said on last night's show or Sunday's show. But to go into one of these things, and this is what I really want to send out to, the casual fan, the ones that they watch their team and it's it. Just go into the fact, we've seen Florida State lose to Longwood. We've seen Alabama lose to Lehigh. So you got a team like Arkansas that goes into their first 2 games against Florida State and Duke. Just talk about how difficult it is, especially with how you have evaluated Arkansas's roster with the youth and what you have returning. How difficult of that gauntlet of a schedule, especially if you want to sprinkle in the doubleheader with Arizona coming up on Thursday. Just tell the fans just how difficult of a schedule that is.
Oh, it's incredibly difficult. I mean, even for, teams that are number 1, and Arkansas is a top 10 team, but take UCLA. they were down in the 7th inning to Louisiana, to the Raging Cajuns, and they were 2 outs away from losing to the Raging Cajuns. I mean, when you get into a tournament like that, there's no easy games. The worst teams in the tournament are still good teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, 16-team tournament, I mean, you play 4, 5, 6 games depending on who you are. Arkansas plays 5. It's incredibly difficult. But I think it's also, in Arkansas's case, I think it's super important. And I think it's actually important that Arkansas lost a couple of games because they do have that youth. They do have such a different roster from what they had last year. You need to face everything you can before you get to conference play. And that's what tournaments like Clearwater do, because you're going to play top competition that you're not going to face the rest of the year. And you're going to take your lumps, whether you lose, win, and, in a tough way, which Arkansas also did, but you're going to take your lumps along the way. And that's just going to prepare you for conference play.
And also, what does it say for a team? You're talking about the youth. Both of the losses, I mean, Duke and Florida State jumped out to big leads, and Arkansas fought their way. I mean, they were one swing away from tying the thing up against Duke. I mean, they had a chance to tie things up. So just talk about just how impressed you were and what you saw from this team, what you expected, and maybe some things that you didn't expect from this team, what you witnessed.
I mean, I liked their fight because, just like you said, they fought back against Florida State and Duke, and then they also withstood some fight back. For instance, when they played the Raging Cajuns, I mean, that was a 7-0 lead that ended in a 7-6 final score. So you had fight in 2 different directions. You both made the fight, but you also withstood the fight. And I think both are important. In watching Arkansas, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily like to single players out, but I really liked what I saw out of Robin Herron. She impressed me from the circle. And I thought that was a really important step for her and for Arkansas needing that true number 2 with Shanice Dels. So I really liked what I saw from Robin Herron. But I think, too, this was the first chance, especially for a lot of casual softball fans who know Arkansas 2-time defending SEC champions. Oh, well, they're going to be good again. Oh, well, they're not going to be good again because they lost the seniors. It's usually black or white for your casual softball fan. I think one thing that I saw this weekend was you had players, the Ryland Hedgecocks and Casey Hoffmans of the world, who can step up, who can step into an offensive leadership position that coming into the year, there was a question, who could do that? Well, now you're beginning to get some answers to that question. I think that was one thing about Arkansas that stood out to me as well.
Yeah, and Ryland Hedgecock, I mean, you come out so far this season, she's batting .480.
Mm-hmm.
She has 13 RBIs on 12 hits. I mean, and was on a tear. She has – that's another one of those ones that it was crazy. Coach Steifel said that didn't get enough attention. And it seems like there's always that one player. I think Casey Hoffman was that player last year.
Yep.
And, to see Casey Hoffman lay out for that ball, and she's got a cannon on it. That's the one thing you can really say about this team, what they have in the outfield, is they got absolute hoses. So to really see some of these kids come out, I mean, even the freshmen, Kamazin, Hannah in the circle, getting those 5 pitchers, this is what softball is about. This is big boy softball. And you're going to come back and look at June. If you want to go sit at that big boy table, College World Series, you got to play these big boy teams.
Well, that's exactly what it is. And I think that's, like I was saying, that's especially important for this Arkansas team. Because, for instance, last year's Arkansas team was such a murderer's row of a lineup. I mean, you were, KB Sides to Hannah McEwen to Danielle Gibson, all the way down. This year, you don't have that. This year, you need emergence. And, I think what you started to see from Arkansas this weekend was the beginning signs of that emergence. You play the tough teams. You fight the battles. Sometimes you win. Sometimes you lose. Sometimes you fight from behind. Sometimes you withstand the fight from ahead. But that you started to see that emergence, whether it's Robin Herron, whether it's Ryland Hedgecock, Hoffman, whoever else, you started to see, I think, that, which is going to come in really handy, especially in these next few weeks, but really once SEC play starts.
And the biggest thing is, like, you go, other teams, they could go to this Clearwater Invitational and play their 5 games, and then we're going to put the brakes on, and we're going to go to these classics and play some cupcake teams until conference play. They play Arizona 3 times this weekend.
Yeah.
Then you turn around the Whoopig, you got Iowa State, which I don't. If you know more about Iowa State, but still, that's a D1 program
Solid team.
And then UCA, who has withstood with LSU and gave Arkansas fits every time they've played. Then you go into Texas A&M. So, I mean, this is not an easy schedule. And I think that's designed because of how things ended the past 2 years. They're seasoning this team. They know that there's youth. They need to add a little bit more seasoning on this team to get them ready, because I'm telling you, there was nothing more heartbreaking than watching that press conference after that Texas game when they got beat. I mean, that was one of the most brutal things, like, for me, because you felt for her. You know her personally. You've been in press conferences, so you know what kind of coach she is. So you got to know how much that meant to her.
Oh yeah, I remember sitting there for that press conference, and my Lord, it was something.
Yeah,
I mean, and you're right. I do think it was by design, because one thing, yes, you graduate all those seniors, but if I know Courtney Deifel a little bit, that's a feeling she would rather not feel it all, but she doesn't want to feel it more than once.
Yeah.
And, this team this year needed these tests. I mean, even Oklahoma last year, the odds-on favorite the entire calendar year, forget just the season, still lost. I mean, they lost 3 games, they still lost. So you're going to take your lumps. You're never going to go 56-0 or whatever it ends up being by the end of the year, if you include postseason. You're never going to be like that. It's not going to happen. Maybe the UCLAs and Arizonas of the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. It's not going to happen now. So taking your lumps early, even if that means a few losses, really honestly can be beneficial. And, that's the thing when I see these results like from Clearwater, or Arizona and Arkansas pretty much playing a 3-game series, what it amounts to, in general sense. You play the Iowa States, even Baylor from opening week. You don't have a weekend where you just have teams that on paper you're going to blow out, because on paper never really matters. But even if on paper you're not going to blow them out, that tells you, okay, we got at least a test. We can't take this weekend off, and it keeps you going, keeps your juices flowing, keeps your blood flowing. It keeps you prepared versus, oh, well, I can check out this week, no big deal. Well, no, maybe not. And all that does is prepare you more and more.
And let's talk about the team they got coming up at Arizona. I mean, they were at the Clearwater Invitational as well, and played Florida State 6-4, got beat by Texas A&M and Mississippi State. But they had a big win over Virginia Tech and then beat Indiana 10-1. So this is where you kind of get a familiarity. There was one of the coaches that were watching their games. But how important is it that when you have these invitationals that you by chance get to play in the same invitational with them before you host them, that you can get a little feel of what they're about?
Oh, for sure. It helps. I mean, because just that little bit of extra scouting, because you just don't know, because you can watch as much film as you want to. You can go in whenever you want to and pick up, this pitcher throws this, or this is how they get out of, this situation, or this is how they get into this situation. But, there's nothing like live game action, and you get to see them, and it's never a bad thing. I will say this. I think Arkansas and Arizona is going to be a really intriguing matchup, because I think they're both in similar positions. And I think that's part of it too, because you're both coming off of that tournament where, both of you know intimately as programs, this is what Clearwater was like. This is the difficulty we faced. We had to do ESPN in the middle of it. We couldn't get to sleep till late this night. You both are coming off a very similar experience, whether that means record. I mean, I think Arkansas was 3-2, Arizona was 2-3. So, I mean, similar record, not exactly the same, but the experience. So that plays a role in it too, because, oh, well, you know what? Arizona has been down in Florida. Well, we've been down in Florida. So what did they go through? Was it, really hot days? Were they really humid? Well, okay, so they're tired like we're tired. Stuff like that makes a difference too. Makes for a really intriguing matchup, because then it's just a matter of, outsmarting each other, honestly.
And then Arizona's also coming into Vogel Park and beat Arkansas. So, I mean, there's that caveat too of, in the Super Read, the first one, So I guess just from what you've seen from Arizona, let's break down their pitching, because I know, Arkansas early, what we've seen when they've struggled is when they're facing like an elite pitcher. And so just go into what they got pitching wise, and then who we should look out for on the offensive end.
So pitching wise for Arizona, I think to me, that's been their strength when they've had it. In Clearwater, they struggled, like you mentioned, the Mississippi State, Texas A&M losses. But to me, their best moments were when their pitchers were strong. Devin Netz is their ace. She's really the only returner from last year from that World Series team. To me, the most impressive outside, and Nets had that game against Virginia Tech where she was rock solid, like just really, really good. To me, the most impressive one outside of Nets was Aisa Silva, who's a freshman who actually graduated high school early. She wasn't supposed to be in Arizona until the fall of 2023, and obviously she's there now. She came in December. So, I mean, you come in, 5 weeks and you're pitching against teams like that in Clearwater. I mean, that's impressive. And she actually looked really good to me. So those are the two that I would say watch out for, especially. They've got a pitching staff of 5, a couple of JUCO kids, a transfer from Princeton. I think it's a nice mix, honestly. But those are the two that I think could cause the most damage potential. I think those are the two that, to me, probably are in best position to fit that elite mold you mentioned. And then offensively, I mean, you've got Allie Skaggs, just is an absolute slugger, led the Pac-12 in home runs last year, All-American. And you've got Carly Scoopin, who's kind of their anchor in their lineup. You take those two. I mean, you've got some other pieces, but those to me are the two hitters who honestly swing the heaviest sticks, probably can cause the most damage, to my mind.
And we'll wrap up with this. I think a sport that really kind of gets left out. Again, the people who follow the programs root for them, but I want to talk about what has the transfer portal done for the game of softball, how it's helped, what it's been, because I'm not gonna lie. I wanted Kilfoyle to come to Arkansas. I've talked to you. I was campaigning, and yes, she went to Oklahoma State, but I'm just saying you got her combined with Shanice and this freshman coming in. I was praying for that lineup. So, and we got Christina Foreman come in, and then Halverson. Just talk about what one or two players in a college softball game can do to a whole team when it comes to this transfer portal.
Oh, it's huge. It's a matter of, like you say, one or two players is all it takes. I mean, right now you take Foreman, you take Halverson, and even throw in Timber Riley. There's 3 transfers who can contribute on offense. Well, 3 transfers right there could transform an offense in today's transfer portal age. It's absolutely changed the game of softball in so many different respects. Everything from the All-Americans that went to Oklahoma this year to just a major, I think an 8-member transfer class that went to Oklahoma State, to ones more like Arkansas where you get 2 or 3 players who can really make a difference, can start for you type of thing. It's absolutely changed the game of softball. It's changed the way coaches recruit in the game of softball. And it's changed how teams are set up. It's changed everything about the game of softball in some respect or another, both in positive and negative ways. It gives you opportunities for a player who's not in a favorite situation for whatever reason. Sure, they've got an outlet to depart now, get somewhere where they do love it. But it's also the other side of things. It's absolutely fundamentally changed the game of softball.
And again, I said last thing, but I forgot it was. We got to mention the whole uproar that was caused between the Texas and the Kentucky game. And you even wrote an article about it. Mm-hmm. And of course, you're going to have the people, and to me, I'm on the side of the people who are actually defending this. I can't believe. I understand it's a rule, but baseball and softball, they have even in a gentleman's sport like golf, they have unwritten rules. Mm-hmm. And if you're really that petty to where you're having to try to win a game like that way in this early in February, 1, and 2, you don't think that Kentucky is going to remember that when you come back into the SEC in the next year or two. Just talk about that instance and break it down for the people who didn't follow exactly what happened, and you don't have to go into depth about each pitching change, but to me, it was just like you're really taking advantage of something. And the backlash was, well, that's the same thing as the Kentucky coach telling them to stand on the bag fast. So kind of talk about the differences.
So the short version of what happened was Kentucky, Texas, they had a drop dead time, which is not super common, but far too common in softball. Basically, Kentucky had to be done by a certain time to catch their flight. So that was what the thing is, that's pre-established at the plate meeting. So it cannot be changed during the game. Once it's set, it's set. So we get to the 7th inning. It's a tie ball game. Texas had a 4-0 lead. Kentucky comes back tied 4-4. We get to the 8th inning. Well, in that 8th inning, you're getting close. You're after 3 o'clock, and the drop dead time was 3:30. So in the course of that time, Kentucky scores 3 runs in the top of the 8th as the away team. So you still got to play a full inning, and if you don't play the full 8th, it reverts to the last inning, which would be the 7th, and the score, it would be a tie in the official record books. So when Kentucky scores those 3 runs, Texas's coach starts doing some stall tactics. Like you mentioned, there was a visit to the mound that lasted a solid minute. Back to the dugout, batter steps in, batter steps out. Oh, pitching change. So then you got several minutes for the pitcher to warm up and all that. Eventually, a Kentucky runner who was on third base, 60 feet from scoring herself, steps off the bag early, which you can't do in softball. You got to wait till the pitch is thrown. She steps off early. It's leaving early. It's an out. So that goes to the bottom of the 8th. Well, in the bottom of the 8th, you had everything from pinch runners for including the fastest player on the team to a batter needing contact solution after one pitch to just a bunch of different things. And nothing was illegal. Just like you say, it was all within the rule, but literally it got down to the point of 2 batters on, 2 outs, and 2 strikes on the batter. And Texas's coach needed to pinch run for his fastest player at first base at 3:29. So gamesmanship goes both ways. That's the word I like to use. And, yes, Kentucky's runner stepping off early, that's gamesmanship. A lot of what Mike White, the Texas coach, did was gamesmanship. But there's also a line. And what he did was so much of it that to me crossed that line. And I think you're right. Kentucky may well remember that when Texas gets to
they are. That everybody in the SEC. It's just one of them things that everybody wants to find a way to hate Texas, and especially in our country, But yeah, I just wanted that breakdown because I play softball, so we know about patchers, and you're down to the final minute, and guys want to sit there and lollygag. Like, play the game in the normal pace. Don't slow it down just because we're at the tribe. But man, again, I know you got to jump off here, and busy weekend. Can't wait to see you when we chop it up when you come to Fayetteville. I don't know if you've got that in your calendar yet or what weekend you're coming, but keep in touch with me, and we'll always glad to have you on, man.
Appreciate you, man. I'll see you for the Florida series.
Yes, sir. Sounds good.
See ya.
Well, that was Justin McLeod of Extra Innings Softball. Again, when it comes to the softball, I compare him to my guy, Kevin Bohannon, when it comes to the world of softball, because there's nobody who works harder, travels harder. This dude, it's not just during softball season for him. It's a 24/7 job for him. I'll text him in December or October, November. What are you doing? I'm working on this story. So dude really does his work. You can find him on our Facebook or on our Twitter, Instagram. So really thank him for coming on and really breaking down the series. It's going to be a tough one. They're expecting a record-breaking opening day crowd this weekend on Thursday. They open up with a doubleheader against 15th ranked Arizona. So it's going to, like I said, it's going to be a tough one. Other news, the basketball team, they have 2 games left of the regular season, and just following a rough week of 87-67 loss to Tennessee, and just that fourth quarter debacle against Georgia that really, when you're coming to the last part of the SEC season, and like me and Jacob said with the men's, you do not want to go into the SEC tournament relying on winning to get you in the NCAA tournament, because with the way things are kind of going out now, I mean, if you got that 8-9 game, you've got LSU or South Carolina waiting on you in the second round, depending on where they put you. But it's most likely looking right now that they'll play Missouri first game and then South Carolina next. You do not want to go into the SEC tournament relying on beating South Carolina to get into the NCAA tournament, because I mean that's a tall task to ask. And Coach Neighbors was on the press conference today, and just the girls know they're in a funk. They're trying to do everything to get them to really finish these last 2 games strong. They play Thursday at Mississippi State, and they have their last home game Sunday against Texas A&M. So fans, I know it's not been the year that everybody's hoped for, and I know there's a lot of frustration. A lot of it, like I've stated, I'm the biggest when it comes to the women's sports here, biggest supporter, biggest follower, and all that. but you have to also admit when it's warranted with the frustration when you see all the talent come in. You know, as long as we're not going out and personally attacking these players, I mean, especially when it's on a congratulatory post about Aaron making 1,000-point club, and we choose that for them to go at the player. I think that's crossing a line. You know, Stephen A. Smith, and I know a lot of people don't like his views and his takes, but you know, if you want to talk about the team playing bad, or you want to talk about just the turnovers and this, but man, if you're singling players out and going at these kids, it's a thin line. And do you really want to tiptoe that line when it comes to being just blatantly disrespectful and going at when a post is supposed to be about their achievement, the 4 years at Arkansas, and to come in on that thread, that post, to sit there and just start going after the kid, you know, and then there was an altercation, social media altercation early in the year, and then now they're mean girls. Or I mean, it's like, all right, so you're getting onto the girls for their thing, but what do you think you're doing by saying, "Oh, mean girls never win"? Well, you're doing the same thing. You're being that person instead of you're being what you're complaining about, which makes no sense at all to me. I don't understand it, never will. But if you're frustrated with the team and how they're playing, and man, it's just, I hate to see them lose like that. That is totally warranted, verified. You have every right to look at this team and be like, man, I wish they would be a little bit, win some more games but something in that LSU South Carolina back to back just really, I don't know if it did something to the team's composure, their psyche, or what, but they have not been the same since then. And that just shows you, I mean, South Carolina and LSU are damn good teams. I mean, they're damn good teams. So hopefully they can salvage these 2 games, win out, get a decent seed, and win a couple of games in the SEC tournament, because, as of right now, they're on the outside looking in. They're the first team out. So they desperately need to win Mississippi State, Texas A&M to get back on that bubble, because they look at the women's side of it just like they do the men's when it comes to the last 10 games. And a good run, win a couple of games, get out there in Greenville, which I will be out there in Greenville doing some coverage. We'll have another announcement about that next week, doing a little side project while I'm out there. So I will be out there giving all the coverage from SEC. The women's basketball tournament will be at the games. So we'll have plenty of pre-game, post-game stuff going on. Follow us on all of our social media handles. But after that, we really want to talk about this women's track and field team. Number 1 team in the country. The men, I think they're just, I mean, Britton Wilson is just absolutely killing it when it comes to the track. And then the Arkansas, the distance medley, Reese Lay made a school record. It was in the 800 by Britton Wilson. And then she won the 800 meter at the time of 2:02, which is the third, number 3 on the UA's all-time track list. So you were talking about what they're doing. I mean, really carrying the torch when it comes to track and field programs. The men's team, the women's team is just doing amazing things when it comes to they're at the Tyson Invitational. So be looking forward to that. They have, let me see, look at their schedule. They have the Razorback. They go to New Mexico on, let's see, they have the SEC Indoor Championships on the 24th. February 17th, they have the qualifier, and then they have the 17th, the SEC Indoor Championships on the 24th and the 25th, and then the NCAA meet is March 10th and 11th. So plenty of track left to be. I don't know if I've never personally went to a track meet there at Arkansas. I'm hoping to get to one pretty soon, but if you can't get out there and support them, the golf team finished 7th at the Moon Golf Invite, which again, another, Shauna Taylor has just really done some really good things with that program. And let's see, after it was a 3-under on Sunday, they placed ninth out of 17 teams there. Occasional Mystery for the second straight day after tallying a 3-under, climbed 11 spots. She was bogey free for 2 straight rounds. Giovanna Fernandez had the second lowest scoring in the round, logging a 1-under 71. Again, just Occasional Mystery tied for 8th overall, and then they finished at 9th behind Vanderbilt, Clemson, Michigan, Florida, Northwestern, UCF, and LSU, who won with a minus 26 overall. But yeah, with softball kicking off, they're finally at home. They're going to be at home for a while, as we stated on the podcast. They start their homestand on the 23rd, and they do not leave until they have their first SEC road, which is March 18th against at Alabama. So you have between now and March 12th to watch them play at Bogle Park. Again, next it's going to be a record-setting crowd, what we're expecting for the opening weekend. And what an amazing weekend to have it after when Coach Deifel has her all-time wins at Arkansas. And the amount of years that it took her to get there, the amount of love that was showed after that game, the social media posts, I know you've seen it. I mean, it's just incredible what she's done in a short amount of time to have everybody bought in to this program, the former players that are still on staff, the former players that want to be on staff. You know, you're getting transfers to come in to really produce. And what she did, she tested the heck out of this team. And, you know, she's the nicest person, the most humble person in the world. Like if you would have walked up to her today and say, hey, you know, thank you or congratulations on your all-times wins, she'll thank you back. But in her mind, it's like, that's a team deal. She does not hardly take any credit for herself. So, but it's going to be a great weekend coming up. If you can get out, beautiful weather. I think the weather is going to end up being perfect this weekend. So get out there. And again, we are still doing our Hot Works membership giveaway. You see the bag right here behind me. We're giving away a 1-month free membership, and it's going to have all the goodies and stuff. We got the towel, but not the mat will be included when you take it there. So if you've not been inside the Hot Works studio there at Springdale, sign up for your free class. Your first session's free. Go talk to Lily. Tell them we sent you. You'll get entered into the drawing, and we're going to run this thing until Arkansas plays in their first away game. So we're going to run this all the time that Arkansas has their homestand. We're going to run the giveaway until March the 12th. So you have till March the 12th to go into the Hot Work studio, tell them we sent you. They'll put your name in a drawing, and then we'll have a drawing on it would be the following Monday. So on the show of Monday, March the 20th, we'll have the giveaway on March 20th. So get in there. I've been in there a few times. It's hot in there. It's doing a workout in sauna, and I know that for most people, that's not the most enjoyable thing in the world. But I'm telling you, once you get in there and do it a couple times, you get hooked. You can ride your bikes. You can do the rowers. For the ladies, you can go in there and do the bands, the yoga, the Pilates. There's even a workout area in the back with the free weights and the dumbbells and the cables. So go in there. It's in Harbor Meadows off 412 in Springdale. Go talk to Lily, get entered into this, and win your free membership, 1-month membership at Hotworks. But that will do it for this episode of the Weekly Women's Sports. Again, we want to thank Justin for coming on. And next week's show, that's another reminder, there probably will not be a Weekly Women's Sports report next week. I will be in South Carolina. Depending on internet connectivity you're out there, I'm going to have my laptop, so we might go live from South Carolina. I might go live from Bon Secours Arena. So we'll get that figured out. But as of right now, I don't plan on doing a podcast next week. But if I can find the internet connectivity where we can get it done, I'll definitely bring you all the live updates starting next Tuesday.